get help. Go to the people whose dogs you admire. Go to the long-term breeders. Ask questions. Learn. You just don't pick it up in a heartbeat. It takes a long time to really learn a breed.
Welcome to the Better Breeder Chronicles, brought to you by EasyWhelp Premium Whelping Boxes. Elevate your breeding program with EasyWhelp. In today's episode, we visit with Kathy Lorentzen of Ocoee English Springer Spaniels. Located in Michigan, Kathy is one of the most iconic breeders in the modern breed. From a modest number of litters, Kathy has bred nearly 90 champions, multiple national specialty winners, several top producers, and 2 breed record holders, including the top specialty winner in breed history. While Kathy has rarely specialed her dogs at all breeds, she does have a number 1 Springer and top 20 sporting dog to her record, which was breeder-owner handled by her daughter, Melanie King. She has also bred multiple group and best in show winners. Kathy is an author, breed educator, and sporting group judge. She has received several National Parent Club awards. Those who know Kathy best talk about her consistency and knowledge of the standard. She has been a mentor who has helped many others achieve great success. Join me now in welcoming the master of Ocoee, Kathy Lorentzen. Kathy, welcome to the show, and I'm excited for you to share the Ocoee story with us today. Take us back to the beginning. How did you get started in purebred dogs?
I tell everybody that I think I was born animal crazy. My parents always had purebred dogs. My dad had hunting dogs. My mom always had a house dog when I was born. She had a wire fox terrier. And when that wire fox terrier died when I was about 3, she went literally down the street to a lady who bred Shetland sheepdogs and got a new house dog from her. And that woman was absolutely the catalyst for me as a very young child. I was so young that my mother would put me across the road in front of our house, and Marie would put me back across the road in front of her house so that I could walk the block between the 2 houses. And I was fascinated. She was a very eccentric lady. She was older. Her children were gone. They didn't have any interest in her dog thing. And, this was 1960, and she bred and showed Shelties. She ran an obedience class. She had a grooming shop in her backyard. She was very advanced for 1960. I mean, for sure. She owned the first ever champion UD dog of any breed in the state of Michigan, a blue Sheltie. And so I was just fascinated by the whole thing. And I just practically spent my whole life down there when I was a kid. And, by the time I was 10, I had seen dogs bred, puppies whelped, raised, sorted. I could put a pretty good trim on a poodle. I had shown one of her Shelties to a CD. This was by the time I was 10. Along came my first golden retriever when I was 12. And that just absolutely cemented my interest. I was so focused on being in dogs. I couldn't wait to get home from school to mess with my dog, to train my dog, to trim my dog. That's all I cared about.
And was the golden actually yours that you owned?
She was. She actually came through this woman's obedience class. The young family that had her were moving into a community where they couldn't keep a dog, and they were looking for someone to have her. She was about a year old, and my parents let me have her. And I was so lucky because she was very well bred, and she came with the 2 mentors that I kept for my entire life, for their entire lives. One of them is still alive, Marcia Schleyer. She's pushing 90. Betty Gay died quite a number of years ago. But I mean, these people were guiding stars for me through everything that I've done in dogs. They were always there for me.
What were their kennel names?
Marcia's kennel name, they were both golden retriever breeders. They bred dogs cooperatively. Marcia's kennel name was Kyrie, and Betty's was Gay Haven. They were both very prominent in the breed. I mean, on the board, on committees. Betty chaired the committee that revised the breed standard. I mean, they were just both very, very well-respected judges. And they really were wonderful to me because they saw that I really had an interest and that I really wanted to do this and I wanted to do it right. And the thing I want to say about them, and as I got into my Springers too, These people were never afraid to tell me I was wrong. And I don't think we see that today. Everybody is so offended by everything. You just never know whether to say anything or not, and Betty and Marcia, they would take me out if they thought I was being stupid about something. But that's how I learned. They beat front assemblies into me. That's been the whole focus of my breeding program in both breeds, because I was taught that if it doesn't have a correct front assembly, it can't be a great dog. It's not hung together right. And I mean, they were just wonderful. And they guided me. We bred that first bitch in 1968. That's where my first homebred owner handled champion came from. And my mother and I bred Goldens together for about 20 years. But my first Springer came along in 1972, and that was it for me. I was obsessed with the breed and still am.
What mentors did you have within the Springer breed?
My first Springer came about, I met a young couple that had just purchased their first show Springer from a lady named Mary Lee Hendy, who was Canard English Springers. She was very, very influential in the breed. Very. Her breeding program was fabulous. And turned out they only lived about 2 miles from us. And they asked me if I wanted to show their puppy for them, which I did. And in return for having shown her, they gave me Pick Puppy from her first litter of puppies. And he was born in 1972, and that was my Herbie dog, who there was nothing that I did about it. It was pure dumb luck to get a dog like that. I like to think I had a little to do with the rest of it, but that dog, I had nothing to do with that dog. I mean, he was a spectacular dog, probably ahead of his time a bit. Very tightly line bred on a wonderful dog named Inchidoni Prince Charming, who he had a Sally Lynn sire and a Canard dam, but he was closely line bred on Inchidoni Prince Charming, who both of those kennels bred to multiple times. So I got this dog. He was born in September of 1972, and he was just, all I ever did was hang on to the end of that dog's lead, and he did all the rest of it. I mean, people talk about natural born show dogs. I was 20 years old. I had finished a few Goldens. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to trim. Here's a great story. First time I ever met Terry Stacy, I had this puppy at a dog show, and he was like 8 months old. And Terry and his assistant were standing across, kind of away from me, staring at this puppy. So I walked over there and, I introduced myself and said, hi, I saw you guys staring at my puppy. And Terry said, yeah, he's really pretty. Why do you trim him like that? And I said, because I don't know any better, I guess. And Terry and I stayed friends forever. And he was always a cheerleader for me. He loved this dog. I did learn to trim him eventually. And he was a multiple Best in Show winner and a multiple specialty winner. And he was twice Parent Club Sire of the Year. And he was a really important dog for the breed at the time, because he was healthy and he had a really strong, fabulous temperament at a time when the breed was not particularly healthy and the temperaments were questionable.
So what was his pedigree like? What were the influential families behind him?
Well, he was half Sally Lynn and half Canard, two of the most prominent kennels of their day. In Michigan was a hotbed of Springers when I got involved in the breed. There was Lujan, Canard, Sally Lynn, Venetian. I mean, it was huge. The breed is huge in Michigan. And a newcomer trying to win, not so easy, let me tell you. But I got lucky, and the person that I credit most with teaching me about Springers was Karen Priggett Miller, who was Lujan English Springer Spaniels. She was a wonderful breeder. She was married to Mickey Prickett, who owned the Springer DJ, who went Best in Show at Westminster in 1971 and 1972, shown by Clint Harris.
Wow.
The last dog ever to win the Garden twice. 2 years in a row, he won. And I got to know them. I got to know that old dog when he was old. I mean, they were Karen was not an easy mentor. You think somebody would tell you when you were wrong. She was tough, but I talked her into me by making her realize that I really wanted to learn this breed. And she was a trimmer. Oh, she could trim. And she is the one who she set the picture in my mind of what this breed should look like. She did that more than anyone else. She had a picture in her mind and she bred dogs that looked like that picture. And that's where I got my picture. And it's never wavered. I mean, she taught me so much. Karen's been gone a few years now, but every time I saw her when she was older, I never failed to tell her how much she meant. Because I think that's so important. And people don't thank their mentors anymore. You know, and the first year that our dog won the national, Karen was watching pictures be taken and she was sitting in a chair and I pulled a chair up and I sat down next to her and she loved the dog. And she said, this is just a really nice win. And I said, Karen, none of this would have been possible without you. You made this happen for me. And that's so important.
Fellow breeders, see what your breeding program has been missing with Easy Whelp modular whelping boxes. From the durable Easy Classic design to the spacious Easy Classic Tall, Easy Whelp sets a new standard for premium design and performance. Their innovative models were developed for simple setup and maximum safety, with features like the integrated safety rails to protect your next generation. The smooth, hygienic surface allows for quick wipe downs to maintain a sanitary environment. And the new window walled option, which I personally recommend, provides the next level of safety, confidence, and convenience. And for our Better Breeder audience, use coupon code BB15 to save 15% on your purchase. Elevate your breeding program today. Visit easywhelp.com. So I've got to think, what an advantageous position to be getting started in a breed in a state, in a part of the country that is, like you said, a hotbed. Once you had established your mental picture for what you wanted your dogs to look like, what were the bloodlines you utilized, to advance towards your mental picture?
Well, I used a combination of Sally Lynn, Canark, and Lujan. Those were the families of dogs that I blended together. The same Canark, the same Sally Lynn, and Karen Prickett's Lujan. I use a combination of all three of those families of dogs to create my family of dogs. And they were the best families of dogs going at the time. And as far as I'm concerned, they're still the best families of dogs that were going at the time. And they were really fascinating because you could look in a ring back then and you could say Mary Lee bred that one and Karen bred that one and Julie bred that one. Because every family had a very distinct look. I've always said the Canark dogs were very spaniely, the Lujan dogs were very elegant, and the Sally Lynn dogs were very fancy. And you could just tell. You could tell. You didn't have to look in a catalog. You know whose was whose. You know who bred what.
So I'm curious, were those families that you mentioned other breeders were trying to cross them, were they easy to cross, or did you find that you had to find certain nicks to find out the ways to bring them together successfully?
There was a fair amount of trial and error and backpedaling sometimes. I was never blessed with what I considered an easy road as a breeder. I was very lucky with that first dog, and I was very fortunate to be able to get daughters of his to continue on with and to get children from to go with. But I had stops and starts and U-turns. And at one point, I was in Georgia at the time, and I divorced my first husband and moved back home. And the only dog I brought with me was that original dog, Herbie, which was, as it turned out in hindsight, a really good idea because the ones that I had down there weren't good enough. And I was beginning to realize that. I was getting smarter, and I knew those dogs didn't look like what I wanted them to look like. So I sold them all. And I moved home with Herbie, and that's when I was able to get daughters of his. He was used a lot. People loved this dog, especially as he got older and it was a veteran. He Everybody loved this dog. Everybody loved his personality. He had such charisma and he was so smart. So I was fortunate to be able to pick and choose a few of his daughters to really start my breeding program with him.
So once you had that foundation with his daughters, what were the breeding strategies that you applied as you established your own bloodline?
I went to Karen Cricket because my old dog was 10. And though I had had many beautiful daughters of his, I didn't have a son that I wanted. And she had a young bitch that just blew my dress up. And I knew that was the right bitch to breed to this dog. So I went begging to Karen and Mickey, could I please lease this bitch and have a litter from her? She had not been shown yet. I mean, she was very young. And they said yes. So she came home with me and got bred to Herbie. And I remember when they were born, all I wanted was a black and white boy. I just wanted a beautiful black and white boy. And they were born, and there were 4 perfectly marked black and white boys in the litter. I called up, Mickey answered the phone, and I said, God did this breeding for me. These are mine. And that's where I got my living proof dog, who I've always said might not have been the best dog I ever bred, but he was the most beautiful dog I ever bred. The dog had a headpiece that was like carved in stone, and he was a fabulous producer, and he really set the basis for me because he turned out to be a wonderful dog to line breed on. And I am a big proponent of line breeding. I mean, I worked very hard to establish bitch lines that I could breed those 2 lines back and forth to each other, and also to create my own stud dogs to breed my bitches to. I think in the last probably 20 years, I have only bred to 1 outside stud dog. I figured out how to have 2 distinct bitch lines down from 2 really beautiful bitches, and generation after generation, they've been beautiful. And my dogs have to be easy breeders, easy whelpers, great mothers, produce milk. It's all genetic. I'm not messing with any foolishness. I don't mess with infertility. I don't mess with, bitches that walk around on me for 3 days before they settle down and have puppies. I got rid of all of that through the years. And my bitches eat breakfast, grunt, and start having puppies. That's what I want. It's genetic. And nobody will ever tell me it's not.
Kathy, for our listeners that might not fully understand, what you're referring to with separate bitch lines or crossing those, I'd like to go a little bit deeper, kind of into, your theories behind that. Do you maintain 2 separate tail female lines of bitches that you are crossing?
Yes.
Or
yes, I do.
And then when you're looking for them, are you looking for sons of one to cross to the other line?
Correct. That's exactly what I do. And I have 1 line of bitches that are fancier than the other, more elegant, more neck, more leg length. The other ones are I call a little spaniely, a little more spaniely, rounder ribbed. You can't keep breeding fancy to fancy because they get too fancy. And you can't keep breeding spaniely to spaniely because they turn into slugs. You have to have the balance back and forth to keep the type. And type is critical to me. I don't even know if you want to go there, but there is very little type left in the breed in America right now. It's really frightening, which is part of the reason that
Understood.
I created all my own stud dogs. There aren't many in the country that I have any interest in breeding to, quite frankly. I just don't feel we've lost so many of the old time breeders that knew what they were doing.
I want to go back to your comment about creating your own stud dogs. When you went about doing that, were you looking to create stud dogs that had these specific virtues that you were looking to use with a certain tail line family of your bitches? Or was it a certain type, pedigree or genetics? Okay.
Well, I'm very pedigree oriented because I've been in the breed for so long. I have the advantage of knowing those dogs for so many generations back. And there's nothing more valuable than to be able to go back in a pedigree 7, 8, 9 generations, say, well, this is what that dog looked like, and this is what this dog looked like. you're kind of shooting blind if you don't have that knowledge. It's so much easier when you've been in the breed for 50 plus years to go, oh, I remember exactly what that dog looked like. And I am a pedigree freak. I can't remember my own birthday, but I can quote you a pedigree on any dog around here. And I just can. And I'm very pedigree conscious when I breed, very, because I'm very health conscious and very temperament conscious. This breed went through some pretty severe health issues. It went through a long period where the temperaments weren't wonderful. And I have to say, I give a tremendous amount of credit to the breeders in the late century and early this century for cleaning up temperaments, because I think that overall we worked really hard to fix those temperaments. We had, and everybody talks about Springer rage, and it does exist, and it always did exist, but it's very rare. And it's a neurological disease. It's not a temperament issue at all. The dog does not control it. They can't control it. But we were having a lot of dominant aggression, possession aggression, don't tell me what to do aggression, I'll bite you. It was a problem. They were tough. A lot of the dogs we had we had tough, and then we had fear issues too, where they were afraid of their own shadow. And I really give credit that we worked hard. And we still have some temperament issues, but nothing like we did before. Nothing. It's all gotten very good. Unfortunately, the type has kind of gone away. And I think that's part of because people were trying so hard to fix the temperaments. They were making breedings that were a compromise on the quality to get the temperaments. I feel like I never did that. I mean, I was ruthless. I culled dogs out of my breeding program in the 80s and the 90s because that's when it was the worst. I got in trouble for I was so honest about it that people said I was lying. I was just telling the truth. I felt like that was the only way that we could deal with it and get it out in the open. And so the temperaments are a lot better. The health is a lot better. Epilepsy is incidence has gone way down. There is still a little, but that's improved a lot. Other than that, I mean, we have a couple of eye issues, but one of them is retinal dysplasia, which they're born with. So you get them checked at 8 weeks. If they don't have it, they're not going to have it. And the other one is PRA, which is really very small in our breed. There were a couple of families that had some serious issues with early onset PRA, and we have a test now, which is awesome. And it's very rare now, early onset. And a lot of the dogs, the test is incomplete because a lot of the dogs that test affected never become afflicted in their lifetime. Or if they do, maybe at 13 or 14. Okay. But it's been very helpful. But again, the couple of people that had really bad issues with the early onset PRA compromised their breeding programs to get normal test results. And I saw big changes in the quality and consistency of the type of their animals, but they cleaned up the eyes. And I mean, you have to make a choice. Everybody does. I did not ever breed based on the test, but I test all of my dogs. But the thing is, in almost 55 years, I've never had a blind dog. So it's my feeling that the early onset gene does not exist in the dogs that I use. But I test them all. But I've had lots of dogs that tested affected and never lost their eyesight, no matter how long they lived. So the test is incomplete. They're missing a gene, they're missing a rider, they're missing something. They're still working on the test, but it's a good basic lets you know, if you don't want to ever produce affecteds, then you just breed normals to carriers and you don't ever produce an affected because it's a simple recessive. So it's very easy to do that. I never bred that way. I didn't let it control my breeding program because I wasn't going to let it control the quality of my dogs. And I was also working with the fact that I knew I'd never had a blind dog. So I was lucky. I didn't have to compromise my breeding program, but other people did.
Kathy, how many dogs do you typically work with in your breeding program?
Well, when I was young and strong, I would 8 was my comfort number. I've never had a kennel. I've always just had dogs, a house full of dogs, a kennel room, huge paddocks, fenced yards, pastures to run them in. They're dogs. I mean, they're pets. They've always been my pets. I wouldn't have them if they couldn't be pets. Um, I used to keep 8, and then when my daughter, Melanie King, became a full partner in this breeding program, which was about in the year 2000, it got easier because she kept some and I kept some. So we were able to make more litters of puppies and have more choice and, have more breeding options, and she is a spectacular handler. She won juniors at Westminster, I think in 96 or something. Just fabulous handler. And so I'm getting old and creaky, and I thought, well, I can pretty soon stop showing these dogs, and Melanie can do it all. Well, she went to work for the American Kennel Club, and she's a executive field rep now. So guess who's back to finishing the dog? Me. But I mean, I can't express how important Melanie has been to this breeding program and her input. She has a great eye. She is a wonderful handler. She's grown up with purebred dogs. Her stepdad and her dad and her stepmother bred Irish wolfhounds. She probably had finished 25 of them by the time she was 18. She had whippets of her own. She won the Whippet National with her own whippet bitch when she was 13 years old. She won the Whippet National. Talk about putting pressure on your mother. She's good. So I mean, I cried to lose her to American Kennel Club, but it's a great job for her and she loves her job. And so, but now she can't have litters anymore because she's never home. So I'm back to I only have 4 dogs here right now, but I have others, that I can get my fingers on.
Kathy, I'd like to get some more insight into your mental picture and the evaluation process that you go through. Describe for our audience what your English Springer Spaniels look like.
My picture in my head always starts with silhouette. They have to have correct amount of leg. They have to be just off square. They have to have a long, lean, deep head with flat skulls and parallel planes, a long neck that blends into a long laid back shoulder blade and long setback upper arm, which is a huge problem in the breed right now. They should have a fairly level back and just a gentle rise at their croup, and the tail set should be just a little low and come off. It's all about silhouette. Be able to paint them black and put them on the other side of the room. That's a Springer. That's what I strive to breed.
Here at the Better Breeder Institute, we offer a full suite of digital resources and services developed to educate, support, and promote purebred conservation dog breeders. From free online tools like the Better Breeder Directory and Stud Dog Register, to our growing curriculum of courses, including Website Academy and Business Basics. We offer professional digital services, including email marketing and website design on our world-class Ultimate Breeder platform. Plus, we offer the Better Breeder Certification Program to distinguish purebred conservation breeders who breed to the standard and produce healthy, beautiful, and predictable puppies. We certify breeders who raise the bar with their ethics and breeding practices. At the Better Breeder Institute, we have the missing link to transform your purebred breeding program and achieve your highest goals. Learn more at betterbreeder.org. Many people look at successful breeding programs like your own and only see the successes. They don't get to see all of the challenges, setbacks, and heartbreaks that all of us breeders go through. I know you have experienced some very difficult ones. Could you share a couple of those and how you've learned how to face them head on and overcome them?
Well, I've had lots of challenges and lots of heartbreaks. Very early on, I lost a dog from Parvo. It was right when Parvo just came out, and I had kept 2 boy puppies from this litter, and they hadn't been vaccinated, but the vaccine vaccine obviously wasn't what it is now. And when they were 10 months old, those two brothers got parvo. None of the rest of the dogs in the house did. One of them lived and one of them died. And the one that died was just, I mean, he was half finished. He was just the most beautiful young thing I'd ever seen. Fortunately, I had bred him to a bitch just a couple of weeks before he got parvo. And I was able to get a daughter from that litter. And she became very important in the scheme of things in my breeding program. So that, thankfully, I was able to get her. I lost a spectacular bitch 5 years ago due to a veterinary error and a botched C-section. She went septic. And it was her only litter, but I have a gorgeous daughter of hers is laying right here in a dog bed, and this one's had two beautiful litters of puppies, and I have a daughter of hers. I had a dog that was so beautiful and just the best producer. And again, due to veterinary error and a botched perianal hernia surgery, we had to neuter him, and he had only sired 7 litters. And there was no semen because the repro vet kept saying, oh, well, his semen's great, but it doesn't thaw, so don't bother. But I'll tell you that he sired 7 litters, and we are line breeding to that dog through 3 of his sons, one of whom was Parent Club Sire of the Year, one who was a Best in Show winner, and one who was Best of Opposite at the National under Doug Johnson. He gave us those 3 spectacular sons, and we are line breeding like crazy on that dog with outstanding results. I lost a dog to lepto, believe it or not. A gorgeous 7-year-old dog. He had lepto when he was a puppy, and when he was 7, his kidneys just shut down, and he was a great sire. There was nothing I could do about it. When their kidneys shut down, they shut down. I have learned to compartmentalize the losses. You have to put them in a box and put them over there. Otherwise, they just eat you alive. You just have to go on. If you're committed to what you're doing, which I am obviously a lifer and completely committed to this breed, I just have to close them in a box and move forward. That's the only way. That's how I deal with it. I've never been one who whined about my losses or challenges to anybody, really. I don't get all over social media and go, oh, poor pitiful me, I lost this dog. People who needed it, whenever anything happened, people who needed to know about it knew about it. But I get very weary of all this, arm slicing and renting and, oh my God, and crying and whining. Okay, you're a dog breeder. Get over it. And if you can't do it, then don't be a dog breeder. I really feel strongly that way.
Interesting perspective. I feel the same way. I saw a post from an individual today that looks to be an aspiring talent, and she proceeded to, put up one of those posts, oh, woe is me, and so forth. And, as a longtime breeder, you do kind of sit back though, and, and reanalyze, well, is this the type of individual I want to be investing in? Because if your first reaction to adversity is to run to social media to put it out there to share, I don't know that that's someone that we want to be closely tied with. We endure, as breeders, we endure those type of setbacks all the time, and nobody needs to know about it. We don't need a pity party. You sit back and you make your plan to work your way back and recover and compartmentalize, like you said. But that's an interesting point for younger breeders to think about. Maybe the next time something doesn't go your way, don't go running out to social media to share it, because you might be sending the wrong message to the breeders you might want to be working with in the future.
That's absolutely correct. And that is positively how I feel about it. Talk to whoever you need to talk to about it privately, and then let it go.
So, Kathy, I'd like to learn a little bit more about your most notable dogs and what made them special. Who are the dogs that made Ocoee?
Well, I have to start with the beginning, which was Herbie, the dog that I completely lucked into.
And his registered name was?
His name was Wanaco's Classic Replay. I didn't breed him, but I will say I do take credit for the fact that his mother got bred to his father, because that wasn't what Dave was going to do, and I talked him into doing that breeding. So I do take a little credit for Herbie. He was a brood bitch sire. He created a lot of daughters that founded breeding programs for people in this country. So he's back there in so many breeders' pedigrees now. And I think that every champion I've ever bred traces to that dog. I'm quite sure that it does. I remember I did one extended pedigree. I mean, really, really, really extended. And he was in that pedigree 36 times. So, I mean, he was healthy, he was sane, he was sound. He was just a breeder's dream kind of dog. And I was so young, I didn't even know what I had. I thought, what a great dog. They must all be like this. No, I bet still trying to recreate him, 55 years later. But then there was his son, whose name was Ocoee Living Proof, who was just so beautiful. If you talk to somebody that was around in the 80s and 90s, who was the dog with the most beautiful head in the breed, they're going to say both. They're going to say Living Proof, because the dog's head was just chiseled in stone. And he sired 30 champions and was not really bred. He was never special. He was my sofa dog, but smart people figured this dog out. He finished with 3 5-point specialty majors. So, he got some notice, but almost all of his children finished with big specialty wins. And he turned out to be the dog to line breed on. I line bred heavily on that dog early in my breeding program. I came up with a bitch that was a grandfather-granddaughter breeding on him. And I bred her to an untitled son of that dog. And I had 3 bitches in that litter that were very influential. One went to California and was a Parent Club Dam of the Year. One went to Washington State and was the foundation bitch for Pat Willoughby's Palmar Kennel. When she went best of opposite at a national and produced a best in show son. And the third one I kept and finished. And then I exported her. She was the first champion springer to ever go to Australia. And she had 3 litters in Australia, 2 by Australian dogs and 1 by an American import. And she was very influential. And children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of hers actually are in Europe, went to Europe. And so she was very influential. And that all comes down from that bitch that I got, who was sired by the dog that died when he was 10 months old.
What was her registered name?
Raven, Ocoee Raven's child. She had 3 children. She had, now, Widget was her name was Widget. Her call name, this was a long time ago and I'm old.
I get it.
The 3 daughters were Raven's Child, Whispering Jessie, and California Girl. Those were the 3 bitches that really were all very influential in different breeding programs. So they really were fabulous. And then Melanie got involved in the breeding program, and we did 2 outcross breedings. We did 2 litters, but with the same bitch to a dog of Julie Kay's Silver Hill, Julie's a wonderful breeder. And we did another breeding to a dog of Janice Johnson's, Will Orion. And we got outstanding results from both of those breedings. From the Silver Hill dog, we got a dog and a bitch. And from the Will Orion dog, we got a bitch. And those 2 breedings are totally behind everything we have today. 7, 8 generations down. We have just generationally been able to use those dogs and breed those dogs back and forth. That's where the 2 bitch lines really came in strongly. And we've been able to just breed those back and forth to each other and create stud dog. The dog that I had to have neutered after he only sired 7 litters. I mean, what he gave me a dog that was Parent Club Sire of the Year that I have a 5-month-old puppy sired by that dog right now, Frozen Seaman, out of one of his granddaughters, and he's he's likely the best young dog I've ever had, and I don't say that lightly. I can't quit because I'm so happy with where the breeding program is right now. I can't wait to see what else I can do. I'm old and I wish my daughter could run around the ring with my dogs, but I can still finish them, and that's all I really care about is finishing them. I don't care about specialing them. I don't care about this grand champion thing. Yeah, I don't care. My interest is in breeding them to see what I can make. We can't forget about George. And George was all my daughter's creation. He really was not our pedigree close up, but he had the older dogs in his pedigree, Herbie and Bo and that bunch. But Melanie, his name was Ocoee D squared with a vengeance. She was Melanie did that breeding at her house. There were 11 black and white puppies, 8 of them boys. She picked that puppy out. She raised him. She trained him. She showed him. He was #1 springer the only year we showed him. He won 2 nationals. He was Parent Club Sire of the Year twice. He won the top 20, and he is the top specialty winner in the history of the breed with 42 specialties. And he won the Canadian National when he was 9.5 from the bred by class under a Mexican judge who had never seen him. He was one of those dogs that just aged. So he won most of his specialties from the veterans class, actually. He was so beautiful at 8 and 9. It was unbelievable. So, yes, he was extremely important. And then we got a daughter of his who was a priceless producer. We bred her 3 times and would have bred her again, but she PIO'd. And everything that we have today comes down from his daughter, Penny, whose name was Ocoee Vengeance is Mine. Oh, she's the mother of that black dog that's the sire of this puppy here. Every time we brought her, they were just absolutely beautiful and great temperaments and super health. So let's see, who else? George, Penny. Well, Benny, the one that was sire of the year in 2018, who fortunately had incredible semen. I got 21 breeding units from one collection, and it makes big litters of puppies. I mean, if you don't get puppies from Benny, it's because your vet doesn't know what he's doing because it makes big litters of puppies.
And what was his registered name?
His name was Ocoee Figured Out. I've gotten into this figure thing because that old brown dog's name was Go Figure because his father's name was Silver Hill Feed Dog Go. So now they all hate me because all my dogs have figure in their names and I just love it, but nobody can figure out who's who and I don't care because I know who they are. So it all works for me.
So, Kathy, with this legacy of great dogs that you've created, maintained over the decades, where are you looking to take your breeding program in the future?
Oh, I feel like as long as I can get down in the whelping box and run around the ring, I'm going to keep doing it because I'm so happy with the dogs that I'm making now. And I have an incredible repeat pet market because people who get them want more. I mean, I have people that are getting their 4th and 5th dog now. And I try to refer them and they go, no, no, we'll wait. We want another one from you. So I'm really happy that I have that pet market, because I love breeding dogs for these people who are wonderful and take such an amazing care of their dogs and love them so much. And I charge high for them now partly because I feel like the more they pay for it, the more they're gonna really take care of it. Plus, expenses are ridiculous in dogs. Dog food, vet bills, and vet bills are out of sight. Crazy. So, I mean, I have a long waiting list right now for a litter of puppies this summer, and I might have 2 litters a year, but not more than that. It's too much work. I'm very hands-on in the litter And I'm always doing something with them every day. I'm always in the box and have them outside and try to introduce them to anything and everything I can before they leave. And so I'm exhausted after I have a couple of litters of puppies. That's it. Whelping box is closed at Ocoee.
Kathy, breeders today now have so many advantages over breeders in the past, including technology, DNA testing, and more. However, in many breeds, including my own, we are facing a chronic issue of seeing the breed filled with mediocrity. It's almost rare to find a truly great dog anymore. Why do you think that has become so common in so many breeds?
Well, it's certainly a problem in my breed. It's a terrible issue. I'll tell you, this is how I personally feel about it. I think that there are entirely too many dog shows. I think that the point ratings have gone down to where it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed when my dog gets a major and only beats 4 dogs. I think that's terrible. And I mean, there are so many dog shows. The competition is so watered down. It's so split. All the top winning dogs run from each other. They used to have to show against each other every weekend, you know? Now everybody runs in opposite directions and they only show against each other at Westminster and in Orlando. That's it. And you can finish a pink pig in most breeds. And I think that's what's happened to the quality. People have a litter without much forethought about what they're. There's a terrible problem, at least in my breed. Oh, let's breed to my friend's dog, or let's breed to this dog because he's in the next state and he's close. I don't think there's a whole lot of real thought going on about why you're doing that breeding and what you expect to get and what you're looking for when you do a breeding. You know, there really should be a plan, what you're expecting and what you want to choose from that litter. I don't think people do that hardly at all anymore. They have a litter, they pick a puppy, they give it to a handler, it finishes because it is clean and runs around the ring, and there's no breed type to them. None. My breed's a mess, quite frankly.
Are you preparing for your first litter? Or do you want to outfit your whelping room in style? If so, check out Whelping Bundles from Easy Whelp. The Easy Whelp Starter Pack includes a modular whelping box, heating combo, and reusable pad. Step up to the Essentials, Pro, or Elite bundles to add a variety of premium whelping necessities and accessories. Ensure your whelping operation is world-class with Easy Whelp bundles. Visit easywhelp.com today. Kathy, current breeders are facing several new challenges, including, like we've mentioned, there just being fewer breeders, contracting gene pools, and the loss of major bloodlines. Do you have any ideas for how today's conscientious breeders can succeed in the face of these new challenges?
Well, I think that we have to take personalities out of it and stop worrying about, I don't like that person, or this is my best friend, and that's how we should breed the dog, and start breeding the dogs for the dogs. I don't care who owns it. If I think it'll get me where I want to be, I'm going to breed to it. And I don't think enough people think that way anymore. I really think a huge part of the problem is too many dog shows because there are not enough breeders and exhibitors to support the number of dog shows that there are today. So we have 300 dog shows. We used to have puppy matches with more than 300 dogs. And you can just go anywhere and, you know, run around the ring with a mediocre dog and it'll win and it'll finish. And so then nobody seems to strive to do better. You have to strive to do better. But if you don't have that picture in your brain of what you think your breed should look like, you're never going to make one that looks like anything because you don't know what it's supposed to look like. That's a huge problem in my breed right now. Huge. We've lost so many of the old breeders who really had a program. We still have some, but we've just lost too many, and we don't have enough young people coming up in the breeds. There are a few in my breed that are promising, trust me. And I try to be very kind to them and really encourage them. And they get frustrated because if they're smart, they see what's going on. And what I'll hear is, well, I just don't know if working this hard is worth it because look at what's around me. And I go, no, you got to commit. You got to commit. You got to commit to doing it right because they're just few. I mean, we still have Henriette Schmidt and Julie Kay and Linda Fong and Linda Rydell and a few people, but the not the stable of wonderful breeders that we used to have. And it's just not my breed, it's every breed.
Kathy, how has your vision or goals for your breeding program changed or evolved over the years?
Well, I think I've gotten a lot smarter as the years have gone by. I've always said I think you have to get 20 years down the road and look back and see how stupid you were because you make so many mistakes because you don't know what you're doing. And I was lucky I had people telling me I was doing it wrong. And that I wish that I still had that today. And I also have the perspective from my daughter, who's just as smart as I am about this breed and this breeding program. So we work really well together in this breed. And even though she's not active right now, she's always involved in all the breeding decisions, picking puppies. I mean, she's still a full partner.
What does success in your breeding program mean to you today compared to when you began?
Oh, I think when I started, I wanted to be a big winner, like everybody wanted to be a big winner. And I had a big winner for my very first dog. So I thought, oh, this is easy. Well, not so much, the challenges come along later. But I won more than any breeder, owner, handler in any breed ever needs to win anything. I mean, I was a powerhouse and I traveled this country showing my dogs at specialties and winning, winning, winning. And now that I don't care about that at all, I've almost lost all interest in even showing them because I just don't think it means much anymore with the point ratings the way they are. Now it's about satisfying myself and my daughter in the quality of animal that we're breeding and satisfying my pet buyers, giving them loving, sweet, healthy, kind animals to live with. It's transitioned much more to that.
What ideas do you have for how breeders can better market themselves to pet buyers and the general public?
Well, that's a tough one. I remember back in the day, you could hardly give a Springer puppy away. And we didn't have a lot of avenues for advertising them. I think we were getting $200 for them in the 70s. It's a tough question because I really think that the best advertisement are your customers and the word of mouth is amazing and the repeat business is amazing. I don't advertise my dogs at all anymore. I mean, yes, I have a website and I might say, oh, we have puppies coming, but I already have a long list of people who have had one dog or two dogs or three dogs from me. So I think it's a very difficult question for newer breeders to get their puppies marketed. I know people use AKC, their website. I've never had to use that. It's a tough question. I try to refer to good breeders, and I do sell a lot of puppies for other breeders that I trust because I get way more inquiries than I'll ever have puppies for.
At this point in your breeding career, what do you view as the most significant challenge to your breed?
Quality, adherence to the breed standard. Just so many of them
Okay.
fall so short of the mark. Short heads, round skulls, round eyes, vertical fronts, sickle hawks. We have a horrible problem in the breed right now with sickle hawks. I just don't think people are paying enough attention. We have a very long, intricate, well written breed standard, and it really says what they should look like. I don't know, people don't understand. You can read a standard 100 times and not understand what it's saying because you have to understand the reasons behind the requirements in the breed standard. You have to go further than the breed standard, back to the history of the breed. And let me say this, there was a statement taken out of our American standard that is still in the first paragraph of the country of origin standard, which is England. It is the absolute defining statement of our breed, and why it ever got taken out of the American standard is beyond me. But the sentence is that the English Springer Spaniel is the tallest, highest on leg, and raciest in build of all the British land spaniels. That right there describes my breed. They have to have more leg. They have less bone and substance than a Clumber or a Sussex or a Field. And racy doesn't mean weedy. It means fit to race, fit to be able to go and keep going as an endurance dog under tough hunting conditions all day long. That's what racy means, fit to race.
On the other hand, what has you optimistic about the future of your breed?
Well, the few people coming up that I think really get it, I hope will continue on with this breed and really strive to make real ones that really look like the standard. And I think health is in good shape, and I think temperaments are in good shape. So that's a good basis, but they have to look like the breed. I'm very strong on health. I think there are 88 Ocoee Spaniels on the OFA website, and I test them for everything that they need to be tested for. But a healthy dog with a good temperament that doesn't look like a Springer doesn't do me any good. Yeah, it might make a nice pet, but it's not going to do me any good.
Kathy, if there was one current master breeder that you'd like to see featured on this show, who would that be and why?
Oh, Doug and Jamie. Doug Johnson and Jamie Hubbard. You know, I've known Doug since he was 19 and worked for Brian and Nancy Martin, and he is a master. He is a dear friend of mine. He's been very kind about my dogs over the years. He's pointed at them more than anybody ever needed to. But I just love to talk dogs with Doug and Jamie. I go to their house and, you know, it's fascinating conversations because they know what they're doing. And for them to have taken the breeds that they've taken with so little gene pool and advance those breeds. I'm not big on changing a breed because I don't think that's our job. I think our job is maintaining a breed the way it was meant to be and handing it over to the next generation without having done it any harm. That's how I feel. But they have taken breeds that really needed improvement in quality, and look what they've done. They are brilliant.
Is there a breeder you'd like to see featured on the Better Breeder Chronicles? Then go to betterbreeder.org/nominate to let us know. We are looking for master breeders, whether they are highly acclaimed or they work quietly in anonymity to move their breed forward. Better Breeder Chronicles puts those individuals on their rightful pedestal and shares their story with the purebred dog world. Nominate your most respected breeder today. Go to betterbreeder.org/nominate. Kathy, thinking back over your journey in English Springer Spaniels, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the fact that Melanie and I have done it ourselves. We never used handlers. We've always shown all our dogs ourselves. We've been the ones crawling around in the whelping box, running around the ring, trimming the dogs ourselves, showing the dogs ourselves. That's what I'm most proud of.
To that aspiring breeder who's listening to the Ocoee story today, if there was one thing that you would hope they take away from your story that could help them in their own journey, what would it be?
Get help. Go to the people whose dogs you admire. Go to the long-term breeders. Ask questions. Learn. My door is always open, and I've had a lot of young breeders come here and want to talk about dogs. That's what they need to do. They need to learn. You just don't pick it up in a heartbeat. It takes a long time to really learn a breed. I don't care how much success you might have. I had a tremendous amount of success the first 10 years I was in this breed. But I didn't really know what I was doing. And I had help. And if here's a great Karen Prickett story. This is Karen. We were at a dog show somewhere, set up next to each other, and I had a bitch on the table. And Karen was looking at her and she went, "That bitch doesn't have a good puppy in her." And I went, "Well, aren't you just the foreseer?" Okay, fast forward 5 years down the road. The bitch is the champion, finished with a specialty major, had 3 litters of puppies, made lots of champions, didn't have a good puppy in her. I never went forward with a single puppy out of that bitch. Karen was dead right. I didn't want to hear it at the time, but you know what? I'd never forgotten it. And it was a long time ago when she said that. And I can see her standing at my grooming table in my head telling me that bitch didn't have a good puppy in her. And I'm terrified to say that to anybody today for fear of what the reaction will be. Sharon wasn't afraid to say it, and that's how I learned.
And finally, after your breeding days are done, how do you want breed history to remember Ocoee English Springer Spaniels?
I want people to understand that I really tried. I really tried to make them real, to make good ones, and make them healthy and happy and sound and sane, but look like the breed. That's what I hope people will remember.
If breeders want to learn more about your dogs and your breeding program, where can they go?
My front door is always open. And I also have an extensive website which talks about me, my daughter, the original dogs, the current dogs. There's a lot of information on my website. And I hope people will go read it. And if they have questions, come talk to me. I'm an open book. But they have to listen.
Kathy, this conversation has been tremendous. Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
That's it for this chapter of the Better Breeder Chronicles. We hope you found the Ocoee story with Kathy Lorentzen captivating, and that it will inspire you to pursue your highest goals in your breeding program. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. At the Better Breeder Institute, we encourage all conservation dog breeders to embrace your fellow breeders as partners and collaborators rather than competitors and rivals. With the unprecedented challenges we all face today, successful breeding programs can no longer operate on an island. Our purebred dog breeder community must come together, with everyone pulling in the same direction. This is crucial if we're going to successfully preserve and advance our beloved breeds. I'm Matt Stelter, closing the book for today. Best wishes to you and your breeding program from all of us at the Better Breeder Institute. We'll see you in the next chapter. Take care.